I am Phoebe, 28, and family has always been everything to me. Since I was 16, I have dedicated myself to supporting my parents and siblings financially, emotionally, and in every way possible. I never questioned this responsibility until last Tuesday when a text message appeared on my phone. "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore. At all." Those words from my own mother shattered the foundation of who I thought I was. If you are watching this from a place where family has also let you down, drop a heart in the comments and hit subscribe. Let me show you how I turned the most painful rejection into my greatest blessing. Growing up in Middleton, Wisconsin, our family seemed like any other middle-class household on Maple Street. My parents, Margaret and William, worked hard to provide for me and my younger siblings, Jackson and Amber. Mom worked as an administrative assistant at the local high school, while Dad had a steady job as a sales manager at a manufacturing company. We were not wealthy, but we were comfortable. I remember birthday parties in our backyard, camping trips during summer vacations, and Christmas mornings filled with modest but thoughtful gifts. Everything changed when I turned 14. Dad was laid off when his company downsized, a casualty of economic restructuring. At first, we all believed it would be temporary. Dad would update his resume, go to interviews, and soon enough, life would return to normal. But weeks turned into months, and months into a year. The unemployment benefits eventually ran out, and the savings account was depleted faster than anyone expected. Mom took on extra hours at the school, even working weekends as a receptionist at a local dental office. The strain showed in the new lines on her face and the way her shoulders seemed permanently tensed. Dad tried everything from temp jobs to commission-based sales, but nothing seemed to stick. His confidence eroded with each rejection, and he spent more time in front of the TV with a beer in hand. That is when I first noticed Uncle Richard stepping into our lives more prominently. Mom's older brother had always been the family success story. He owned a lucrative insurance agency in Madison, drove luxury cars, and took exotic vacations. His visits to our house became more frequent, always accompanied by helpful gestures that felt increasingly like charity. He would bring groceries, pay for Jackson's basketball camp, or offer to cover our utility bills. "Family takes care of family," Uncle Richard would say, patting my dad on the shoulder in a way that seemed simultaneously supportive and condescending. My father would force a grateful smile, but later I would hear him punching the wall in the garage or arguing with my mother about her brother's interference. By 16, I could not stand seeing my parents struggle anymore. I applied for a job at the local grocery store, working after school and on weekends. My first paycheck was not much, just over $100, but I will never forget the feeling of handing most of it to my mother. "What is this for, Phoebe?" she asked, confusion crossing her tired face. "For the electric bill," I answered. I saw the notice on the counter. Mom cried that day, hugging me tightly and telling me I should save my money for college. But I insisted, and eventually my contributions became an expected part of our household income. My siblings were still too young to work, Jackson being 13 and Amber just 10, so I took on the responsibility alone. High school graduation brought a crossroads. I had decent grades and a partial scholarship offer to the state university, but it was not enough to cover all expenses. Meanwhile, the grocery store manager had offered me a full-time position with a slight raise. "Take the job," Uncle Richard advised during a family dinner celebrating my graduation. "College can wait. Your family needs you now." I noticed my parents did not contradict him. They remained silent, eyes downcast, as if ashamed, but also relieved. That night, I made the decision that would shape the next decade of my life. I called the university admissions office and deferred my acceptance. The job became my career path, at least temporarily. What began as a stopgap measure turned into years of financial support. I moved up from cashier to department supervisor, then to assistant manager. I took night classes in digital marketing at the community college whenever I could afford them, building skills that eventually allowed me to leave retail for an entry-level position at a marketing firm in Milwaukee. The commute was long, but the pay increase made it worthwhile. By 23, I was sending home over $1,000 each month. It covered half my parents' mortgage, Jackson's community college tuition, and Amber's high school expenses. When Jackson wanted to transfer to a 4-year university, I increased my contribution. When Amber needed braces, I covered the portion insurance didn't. Family vacations, car repairs, medical bills, I always found a way to help. Uncle Richard remained a constant presence, offering his own financial support, but always with strings attached. I will pay for Jackson's textbooks if he majors in business instead of that useless art degree, or I will help with the car payment if William takes that job I recommended. His money came with control, and I watched my family bend to his will repeatedly. As the years passed, I noticed a shift in how my family viewed my support. What once generated tearful gratitude gradually became expectation. My mother stopped thanking me for the monthly deposits. My father called with financial requests rather than to check on my well-being. My siblings asked for extras beyond necessities like concert tickets or spring break trips. The first time I had to say no when my own car broke down and I needed to prioritize repairs, my mother's disappointment was palpable. "We were counting on you for the property tax payment this month," she said. "I guess I will have to ask Richard." That night, Uncle Richard called me. "Family should be able to rely on each other," he lectured. "Your parents gave up everything for you kids. The least you can do is help when they need it." I ended up putting the car repairs on a credit card and sending the tax money home. The pattern was established, and breaking it seemed impossible. Every time I considered setting a boundary, guilt overwhelmed me. Wasn't family supposed to come first? Hadn't my parents sacrificed for me? Wasn't I being selfish to want financial independence when they still needed help? By my late 20s, my career in digital marketing had flourished despite the constant drain on my resources. I became a team leader, then a project manager, working overtime and weekends to maintain my income level. Dating became an afterthought, savings minimal, and my own dreams repeatedly deferred. Small moments of resentment began to accumulate. When my parents remodeled their kitchen with my money but criticized my apartment as too small. When Jackson quit his job to find himself but still expected his monthly allowance. When Amber chose an expensive private university and assumed I would cover the difference her scholarships didn't. The breaking point approached slowly, then suddenly, like a storm that builds on the horizon before unleashing its fury all at once. My promotion to senior marketing director came after 3 years of 60-hour work weeks, sacrificed weekends, and relentless dedication to my clients. The salary increase was substantial, nearly 30% more than my previous position, pushing my annual income into 6 figures for the first time in my life. I was ecstatic, not just for the professional recognition, but for the financial breathing room it would finally provide. My first mistake was sharing the exact figure with my family during our Sunday phone call. 6 figures, my mother repeated, her voice rising with excitement. "Oh, Phoebe, this is wonderful. You know your father and I have been putting off the basement renovation for years. The foundation has those cracks, and the mold is getting worse." Before I could respond, Dad joined the conversation. "The contractor gave us an estimate last fall. It would be about $20,000 for the whole job. With your raise, you could help us knock that out in a few months." I felt a familiar tightness in my chest, the automatic response to yet another financial expectation. "I was actually planning to start paying down my student loans more aggressively," I said carefully, "and maybe finally build up some retirement savings." The silence on the other end lasted several uncomfortable seconds. "Well," Mom finally replied, her tone noticeably cooler. "I suppose your future is important too. We just thought family home improvements might be a priority since you visit so often." The truth was, I visited less and less these days. Each trip home involved financial negotiations disguised as casual conversations, always ending with me writing a check or making a transfer before I left. The next day, Jackson called with news about a startup business idea. a food truck concept he and a friend had developed. "We need about 40,000 in startup capital," he explained enthusiastically. "With your new position, you could be an investor. We would pay you back once we start making profits." Jackson had never held a job for more than 8 months. His friend had recently been fired from a restaurant for chronic lateness. I tried to suggest a small business loan or developing a proper business plan first. "You do not believe in me," he accused, "after all I have done to support your career." I was baffled by this claim. "What do you mean, Jackson? How have you supported my career?" "Family support goes both ways, Phoebe. We have always been your emotional rock. Remember when you were stressed about that big presentation last year? Who stayed on the phone with you for an hour? And now you cannot help me with this one thing. That one thing was $40,000 for a business with no plan, no experience, and no guarantee. Yet somehow, I was the unreasonable one for hesitating." A week later, Amber called about graduate school. "I got accepted to Northwestern's psychology program," she announced. "It is $60,000 a year for 2 years, but with your new salary we can make it work." I asked the word, slipping out before I could stop it. "Well, yes," Amber said, as if it were obvious. "Mom and Dad cannot afford to help, and I certainly cannot pay for it on my own. You are the only one making real money in this family." The automatic transfers from my account to my family members totaled $3,800 every month. My parents received $2,500 for their mortgage and expenses. Jackson got $800 for his rent and career development. Amber received $500 for her undergraduate expenses, even though she had scholarships covering most costs. These planned expenses were just the beginning. Emergency requests had become increasingly frequent. Dad's dental work, Mom's car transmission, Jackson's security deposit on a new apartment after he was evicted from the previous one, Amber's study abroad program that was suddenly essential for her degree. Each time I expressed even mild concern about these additional expenses, Uncle Richard would inevitably call within hours. "Your sister called me quite upset," he would say, his voice carrying that particular blend of disappointment and authority that made me feel like a scolded child. "I thought we raised you to understand that family comes first, Phoebe." We. As if he had raised me alongside my parents. As if his financial manipulation of our family gave him parental rights. The pressure built like water behind a cracking dam. I started having anxiety attacks before family phone calls. I checked my bank balance obsessively. I calculated and recalculated how many years it would take to pay off my own debt while maintaining the family support system I had created. Then I met Sam, not romantically, but professionally, when our marketing firm was hired to rebrand his financial advisory company. During a planning meeting, he mentioned offering workshops on breaking unhealthy financial relationships. "Financial relationships?" I asked during our coffee break. Sam nodded, his expression serious. "Money is rarely just money. It is power control, love, security, freedom. When people use it to control others, or others use your money to control you, that is a financial abuse situation." Something in his words resonated so deeply that I found myself blinking back tears. I scheduled a personal consultation with him the following week, bringing 6 years of financial records documenting my family support. Sam reviewed the documents in silence, occasionally making notes or asking clarifying questions. When he finished, he looked up with compassion in his eyes. "Phoebe, what would happen if you reduced these contributions by half?" The question sent a wave of panic through me. They would lose the house. Jackson would be homeless. Amber would have to drop out of school. "Are you sure? Or is that what they want you to believe?" That single question cracked the foundation of my understanding. Over the next hour, Sam helped me see the reality my parents could refinance their mortgage or downsize. Jackson was capable of working full-time like most adults. Amber could apply for additional scholarships or loans or attend a less expensive school. "Your family has options," Sam explained gently. "They have chosen the option that places the entire burden on you because you have allowed it. You are not responsible for their financial choices. Armed with this new perspective and a budgeting plan Sam helped create, I attempted my first boundary-setting experiment. I called my parents and explained that due to my own financial goals, I would be reducing my monthly contribution by 20% starting next month. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My mother cried about betrayal. My father mentioned all the sacrifices they had made for me growing up. Jackson sent angry texts about selfishness. Amber posted passive-aggressive comments on social media about family loyalty. And right on cue, Uncle Richard called to express his disappointment in my priorities. Despite the backlash, I held firm on the 20% reduction. The sky did not fall. My family adjusted, albeit with ongoing guilt trips and emotional manipulation. This small success gave me confidence to consider further changes. Then came the purchase of my first home, a modest 2-bedroom condo closer to my office. The down payment depleted most of my savings, but the mortgage was only slightly more than my previous rent. I was proud of this achievement and invited my family to a small housewarming party. "It is nice," my mother said, her tone suggesting the opposite as she ran a finger along my kitchen counter. "But was buying really the best financial decision? You could have invested that down payment for a better return." Dad frowned at the living room dimensions. "Seems small for what you probably paid. The real estate market is just robbery these days." Jackson immediately claimed the guest bedroom for his upcoming visits, while Amber criticized my choice of an urban neighborhood over a suburban setting. Not one of them said congratulations. Not one acknowledged that this was the first major purchase I had made for myself after years of putting their needs first. The contrast between their reaction to my achievement and my unwavering support of theirs was stark and painful. That night, after they left, I sat alone in my new living room and finally acknowledged a difficult truth. My family viewed me as a financial resource, not as a person with my own dreams and needs. The Hawaii vacation was supposed to be my gift to my parents for their 30th wedding anniversary. I had been planning it for over a year, setting aside extra money each month, researching resorts, and arranging for time off work. The package I finally booked included oceanfront rooms, a sunset dinner cruise, and a helicopter tour of the islands. It represented the largest single expense I had ever committed to outside of my mortgage, nearly $12,000 for my parents, siblings, and myself. 3 weeks before the scheduled departure, I developed abdominal pain that I initially dismissed as stress or food poisoning. By the second day, when the pain localized to my lower right abdomen, I drove myself to the emergency room. The diagnosis was acute appendicitis requiring immediate surgery. The procedure went well, but complications developed afterward, an infection that extended my hospital stay to 5 days and required an additional week of home recovery. The medical bills, even with insurance, would be substantial. I called my mother from the hospital to explain the situation. "I hate to say this," I began, my voice still weak from the ordeal, "but I need to cancel the Hawaii trip. The medical bills are going to be over $8,000 with my deductible and co-insurance. I just cannot afford both right now." The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Mom, are you there? You are canceling our anniversary trip?" Her voice was flat with disbelief. "After all the arrangements we have made, your father already bought new swim trunks. Amber went shopping for beach outfits. I just had emergency surgery, Mom. I am still in the hospital." "Well, yes, and of course, that is unfortunate," she said, her tone softening slightly before hardening again. "But surely your health insurance covers most of it, and you have that emergency fund you mentioned." "That fund would be completely wiped out, and I would still owe thousands," I explained. "I am really sorry, but we will need to postpone the trip. Maybe we can reschedule for next year." "Your father will be so disappointed," she said. "This anniversary is important to us." Not once during the conversation did she ask how I was feeling or offer to come to the hospital. Not once did she express concern about my health or recovery. The vacation took precedence over everything. Later that day, Uncle Richard called. Your mother is quite upset, he began without preamble or inquiry about my condition. I just had surgery, I said, tears of pain and frustration welling in my eyes. I cannot afford the trip now. Family commitments should be honored, Phoebe, he replied smoothly. Tell you what, I will cover the costs of the trip as my anniversary gift to your parents. You focus on getting better. Before I could respond, he added, No need to thank me. That is what family does, steps in when someone cannot fulfill their obligations. The implication was clear. I had failed in my duty. He was the hero stepping in to save the day. 2 days later, still in the hospital, I scrolled through my Instagram feed to find photos of my family at the airport departure signs for Honolulu visible in the background. Uncle Richard had not just paid for the original trip, he had apparently upgraded their accommodations and added several premium excursions. My mother's caption read, Finally on our way, so blessed to have a brother who understands the importance of family milestones, anniversary celebration. Ohana. Blessed. Not a word about my absence. Not a single family member had visited me in the hospital or called to check on my recovery. They had simply proceeded with their vacation plans as if I were an inconvenient detail rather than a daughter and sister recovering from surgery. For the next 7 days, my social media feeds filled with photos of my family enjoying Hawaii, each post more elaborate than the last. Sunset dinners, where my mother tagged Uncle Richard with grateful captions. Jackson parasailing with premium equipment. Amber posting poolside selfies with designer sunglasses that I recognized as far beyond her student budget. I lay alone in my apartment, managing my pain medication schedule and struggling to prepare simple meals with my limited mobility. The isolation provided clarity I might not have achieved otherwise. As I watched my family's vacation unfold through social media, I realized a devastating truth: they were perfectly happy without me, as long as someone was providing financial support. My therapist, Lisa, had been encouraging me for months to address the unhealthy dynamics with my family. During our emergency phone session that week, her words finally broke through. Phoebe, would you treat someone you love the way your family is treating you right now? She asked gently. The question hung in the air, impossible to deflect or rationalize away. No, I would never abandon someone I loved during a health crisis for a vacation. I would never value money or experiences over their well-being. You have been the family bank, not a family member, Lisa continued. And it is time to decide if that is the only role you are willing to accept. By the time my family returned from Hawaii, tanned and laden with souvenirs, I had made my decision. I would have one final, honest conversation about our relationship and the financial dynamics that had come to define it. I would express my needs and boundaries clearly, offering a new framework for our relationship moving forward. If they could not respect those boundaries, I would need to reconsider my role in their lives. I scheduled a family dinner at my condo for the weekend after their return, promising a home-cooked meal and conversation. For the first time in years, I felt nervous, but resolute about facing my family, not as their support system, but as a person with my own legitimate needs and boundaries. The dining table in my new condo could comfortably seat 6 with a clear view of the city skyline through the living room windows. I had spent the entire day preparing for this dinner cleaning until every surface gleamed, arranging fresh flowers as a centerpiece and cooking my family's favorite dishes. Pot roast with garlic mashed potatoes for Dad. Roasted vegetable salad with homemade vinaigrette for Mom. Mac and cheese with truffle oil for Jackson. Caprese chicken for Amber. I had also prepared, with Sam's help, a reasonable financial plan that would gradually reduce my support over 18 months, giving everyone time to adjust. The folder containing these documents sat on the credenza, neatly labeled and organized, with individual plans for each family member. They were scheduled to arrive at 6. By 6:30, I had texted twice to confirm they were coming. At 6:45, my mother finally replied, "Running late, traffic, be there soon." They arrived at 7:15, all four entering together as if they had coordinated their lateness. No one apologized for the delay. The pot roast had begun to dry out despite my efforts to keep it warm. "This building's parking is terrible," Dad complained in lieu of a greeting. "We had to park 2 blocks away. You should have gotten a place with dedicated parking." "Sorry," I said automatically, though I had emailed detailed parking instructions the day before, including the visitor spaces available in the underground garage. "Well, it smells good in here at least," Mom said, handing me a small gift bag. "A little something from Hawaii for you." Inside was a coffee mug with Hawaii printed across it in fading letters. The price sticker from the airport gift shop was still attached to the bottom, $6.99. "Thank you," I said, placing it carefully on the counter as I ushered everyone to the table. "This place is smaller than it looked in the photos you sent," Jackson commented, looking around critically. "How much did you pay again?" "The market in this neighborhood is overpriced," Amber added before I could answer. "My friend got a much bigger place across town for less." We had not even sat down, and already I felt defensive and diminished in my own home. I took a deep breath, remembering Lisa's advice to stay centered in my own truth, regardless of their reactions. "Let's eat while everything is warm," I suggested, bringing the serving dishes to the table. The first 15 minutes passed in relative peace as everyone filled their plates and began eating. The compliments on the food were the first positive comments since their arrival, though even these came with qualifiers. "The potatoes could use more garlic," from Dad. "This chicken is good, but have you tried the recipe with prosciutto instead?" From Amber. "Is this mac and cheese gluten-free? I am trying to cut gluten," from Jackson, who had never mentioned dietary restrictions before. When the initial hunger was satisfied and the conversation began to lag, I decided it was time to address the purpose of the dinner. I cleared my throat and set down my fork. "I wanted to have everyone here tonight because we need to talk about our financial arrangement," I began carefully. "As you know, I have been supporting everyone substantially for the past decade, and while I have been happy to help during difficult times, I think we need to adjust the arrangement to be more sustainable." 4 pairs of eyes locked onto me, with expressions ranging from confusion to immediate defensiveness. "What do you mean by adjust?" Mom asked, her voice already taking on the wounded tone I had come to dread. I reached for the folder and distributed the individualized plans I had created. "I have put together a gradual reduction schedule that will help everyone transition to financial independence over the next year and a half. I will still help with true emergencies, but the regular monthly support will decrease by 20% every 3 months. Dad flipped through his document with increasingly furrowed brows. "This would cut our mortgage support completely by next year. How are we supposed to make up that difference?" "The plan includes options," I explained, pointing to the relevant section. "Refinancing at current lower rates would reduce your payment. You could also consider downsizing now that it is just the 2 of you in a 4-bedroom house." "Downsize?" Mom's voice rose in pitch. "Leave the family home after all we have done for you." The familiar guilt tactic hit its mark, sending a wave of shame through me despite my preparation. "What exactly have you done for me recently, Mom?" I asked quietly. "We raised you. We sacrificed for years to give you a good childhood. Your father worked overtime when you needed braces. I sewed your prom dress by hand to save money." "That was all before I was 18, I pointed out. "I have been supporting this family financially for over a decade since then." "So now you are keeping score," Dad interjected. "That is not how family works, Phoebe." Jackson had barely glanced at his document before tossing it aside. "This is ridiculous. You know I am working on my business plan. I cannot get a full-time job right now. It would interfere with my entrepreneurial development." "Your entrepreneurial development has been ongoing for 6 years without a business actually launching," I replied, trying to keep my voice level. "Most entrepreneurs work full-time jobs while building their businesses on the side." "You owe us after we supported your career," Jackson snapped. Who was there when you needed to vent about your boss 2 years ago? Who listened to you practice presentations? That is emotional support, Jackson, which should be freely given in any family. It does not cost you anything to listen to me for 30 minutes on the phone. I have given you over $50,000 in the past 5 years. Amber's eyes welled with tears as she clutched her document. If you do this, I will have to drop out of school. Is that what you want? To ruin my future? There are other options, I said, pointing to her plan. You could apply for additional scholarships, work part-time, or transfer to a state school with lower tuition. Many students manage their education without family financial support. This is not who we raised you to be, Mom said, her disappointment radiating across the table. Family takes care of family, period. The conversation was deteriorating exactly as I had feared. No one was acknowledging my perspective or the reality of the situation. I was being cast as the villain for suggesting they take responsibility for their own finances after years of my support. The doorbell rang, interrupting the tense exchange. I was not expecting anyone else and considered ignoring it, but the insistent second ring forced me to excuse myself from the table. When I opened the door, Uncle Richard stood in the hallway, his imposing figure impeccably dressed as always. My heart sank at the sight of him. This was not a coincidence. Uncle Richard, I said flatly, I was not expecting you. Your mother called me, he replied, stepping past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. She was quite upset about this dinner. I thought I should join the family discussion. Of course she had called him. The family enforcer brought in to pressure me back into compliance. The pattern was so predictable it would have been laughable if it were not so manipulative. He strode into the dining area with the confidence of someone who owned the space, greeting my family warmly before turning to me with a practiced expression of concern. Phoebe, he began in his patronizing tone. I understand you are considering withdrawing support from your family. I must say I am surprised. That does not sound like the niece I know and love. I am not withdrawing support, I clarified, returning to my seat. I am creating a sustainable plan that allows everyone to become financially independent over time. Uncle Richard picked up one of the discarded plans, scanning it briefly before shaking his head. This seems rather severe. Your family has come to rely on your generosity. To change the terms so dramatically would cause undue hardship. The terms were never formally established, I pointed out, and 18 months is hardly dramatic after a decade of support. Family obligations are not about formal terms, Phoebe. They are about loyalty and love. He placed a hand on my father's shoulder in solidarity. When your father lost his job all those years ago, did we abandon him? No. We supported him because that is what family does. You supported him with conditions. I said, the words escaping before I could reconsider. Every dollar came with expectations and control. At least my support has been given freely. The room fell silent at my direct challenge. Uncle Richard's expression hardened, the benevolent family patriarch mask slipping for a moment to reveal the controlling figure beneath. I have only ever wanted what is best for this family, he said coldly. Sometimes guidance is necessary when people make poor choices. And who decides what constitutes a poor choice? I asked. You. Because, from where I am sitting, enabling financial dependence for years has not helped anyone become stronger or more capable. Mom gasped at my audacity. Dad's face flushed with anger. Jackson and Amber exchanged shocked glances unused to anyone confronting Uncle Richard directly. You have changed, Phoebe, Uncle Richard said, his voice lowering dangerously. Success has made you selfish and ungrateful. Is this about your new promotion? Has a little extra money given you delusions of superiority? This is about boundaries, I replied, my voice trembling despite my efforts to stay calm. About recognizing that I am a person with my own life and needs not just a bank account for everyone to draw from indefinitely. After all we have done for you, Mom repeated, tears now flowing freely. How can you be so cold? What exactly have you done for me since I turned 18? I asked again, louder this time. Name one thing that has not benefited you more than me. The silence that followed was deafening. No one could answer the question because the truth was uncomfortable. Our relationship had been one-sided for years. I think we should go, Dad finally said, standing abruptly. You clearly need some time to reconsider your priorities. I agree, Uncle Richard nodded. When you have calmed down and come to your senses, we can revisit this conversation. One by one, they stood and gathered their belongings. No one touched the remainder of their meal or acknowledged the hours of preparation I had invested. No one thanked me for the evening or the years of financial support. They simply filed out united in their disapproval of my audacity to request independence. Uncle Richard was the last to leave. At the door, he turned with a parting shot. Family is forever, Phoebe, but respect and support must flow both ways. Think carefully about what you are risking here. The door closed behind him with a finality that felt both terrifying and liberating. I stood in my empty dining room surrounded by half-eaten food and discarded financial plans, tears streaming down my face. But beneath the pain of rejection was something unexpected, a profound sense of relief at having finally spoken my truth regardless of the consequences. That night, I cleared the table alone, wrapped the uneaten food, and washed every dish. With each domestic task, my resolve strengthened. This conversation had not gone as hoped, but it had revealed the true nature of our relationship more clearly than any amount of therapy or self-reflection could have done. The question now was what to do with that clarity. 3 days passed without a word from any family member. No calls, no texts, no social media interactions. The silence was both painful and revealing. In the past, I would have reached out immediately, apologizing for asserting boundaries and offering reassurances that nothing would change. This time, I honored the silence as necessary processing time for everyone involved. On the 4th day, as I was preparing for a client meeting, my phone vibrated with a notification. A text message from my mother had arrived in the family group chat that included my parents, siblings, and me. I took a deep breath before opening it, hoping for some acknowledgement of my perspective, some willingness to discuss a compromise. The message read simply, "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore. At all." I stared at the screen, the words blurring as tears filled my eyes. This was not a request for time to process or an invitation to further discussion. This was a complete rejection, a family excommunication delivered in 12 impersonal words. Before I could even process this first message, additional texts arrived from my siblings. Jackson. Agreed. Your selfishness has torn this family apart. Amber. I can't believe you would choose money over family. Don't contact me. Each word hit like a physical blow. I sank onto my couch phone, clutched in trembling hands, as the reality of what was happening settled over me. The family I had supported for a decade, the people I had sacrificed my own financial security and future for, were cutting me out completely because I had suggested a gradual path toward healthier boundaries. The initial shock gave way to a tidal wave of grief. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, and spent the morning alternating between sobbing and staring numbly at the wall. By afternoon, the grief had begun to shift, making room for confusion and questions. This reaction seemed disproportionate even for my family's typical emotional manipulation. I reached out to a mutual friend who was close with my mother, asking if she knew what was happening. Her response provided the missing context. "I thought you knew," she wrote. "Your uncle is taking everyone to his lake house for a month. He called it a healing retreat for the family after your betrayal. He was packing them up yesterday." The pieces clicked into place with startling clarity. Uncle Richard was once again positioning himself as the family savior, while casting me as the villain. A month-long retreat at his luxury lake house would further cement his control while ensuring my complete isolation from the family unit. It was manipulation at its most calculated, and my family had embraced it wholeheartedly. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The fog of guilt and obligation that had clouded my judgment for years began to lift, revealing the true nature of our relationship with painful clarity. I had not been valued as a daughter or sister, but as a financial resource to be exploited. When I attempted to change that dynamic, I was discarded without a second thought. With trembling fingers but newfound resolve, I composed a simple reply to the family text. "Of course, I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing." The response was immediate and revealing. Within minutes, my phone exploded with notifications. "Mom, let's not be hasty. We just need time to process." "Dad, we should discuss this further before making financial decisions." "Jackson." "Wait, what? That's not what we meant." "Amber, can we talk about this?" The transparency of their reaction confirmed everything. It was never about family bonds or emotional connections. It was about the money, plain and simple. My value was measured in dollars and cents, not love. Uncle Richard's call came next, his name flashing on my screen with an urgency I had never questioned before. This time, I answered with a calm I didn't know I possessed. "You've made a grave mistake," he began, without preamble, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Family disagreements are one thing, but financial abandonment is quite another." "Is it abandonment when someone asks not to be contacted at all, and then I respect their wishes?" I asked quietly. "Don't play games, Phoebe. You know very well what your responsibilities are." "My only responsibility is to myself right now," I replied. "My family has made their position clear. They want space from me, but not from my money. That's not a relationship I'm interested in maintaining." "This is about your family's well-being," he thundered. "Your parents are counting on that support. Your siblings need it for their futures." "They've had a decade to prepare for financial independence," I said. "And they have you, Uncle Richard. You've always wanted to be the family provider. Now's your chance." "This conversation isn't over," he threatened. "There will be consequences for this selfishness." "This call is over," I corrected him, and for the first time in my adult life, I hung up on Uncle Richard without permission or apology. I immediately contacted my bank and canceled all automatic transfers to my family members, a process that took less than 15 minutes but symbolized years of financial entanglement. As I confirmed the final cancellation, a weight lifted from my shoulders so suddenly, I felt lightheaded with the release. By midnight, my phone had logged 37 missed calls and 68 text messages. The family group chat had evolved from anger to bargaining to thinly veiled threats about legal obligations and family duty. Uncle Richard had enlisted mutual friends and extended family members to reach out on his behalf, each message more concerned and persuasive than the last. I turned off my phone, drew a hot bath with the expensive bath oils I rarely allowed myself to use, and sank into the water with a sense of both grief and liberation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and likely escalated tactics from my family. But tonight, for the first time in a decade, I fell asleep without checking my bank balance or calculating how much I could afford to give away to people who saw me as nothing more than a convenient ATM. The morning after canceling my family's financial support, I met with Sam, my financial advisor, in his downtown office. The leather chair felt cool against my skin as I handed him the folder containing my updated financial information. "I've terminated all automatic transfers," I explained, my voice steadier than I expected. "I need to know where that leaves me financially and what steps I should take next to secure my future." Sam reviewed the documents, his expression professional, but with a hint of approval in his eyes. This frees up nearly $4,000 monthly, he observed. That's significant. We can accelerate your student loan payoff, build your emergency fund properly, and begin serious retirement planning. We spent the next 2 hours creating a comprehensive financial plan focused entirely on my needs and goals for the first time in my adult life. The process was both terrifying and exhilarating, like learning to use muscles that had atrophied from disuse. What about if they contact you with emergencies? Sam asked carefully as we concluded our meeting. I had considered this question all night. I'll assess each situation individually, I decided, but I won't respond to emotional manipulation disguised as emergency. Leaving Sam's office with my new financial plan, I took another significant step toward independence. I visited my mobile provider and changed my phone number, something I had contemplated for months, but never had the courage to do. The customer service representative looked surprised when I declined to forward my old number to the new one. Most people want to maintain continuity, she remarked. I'm looking for a fresh start, I replied, feeling the truth of those words settle into my bones. My next stop was my email account, where I created filters to automatically sort messages from my family members into a separate folder that I could check when emotionally prepared, rather than having them appear in my main inbox. Their constant access to my attention had been another form of control I hadn't fully recognized until now. These practical steps toward separation provided a foundation for the emotional work to come. But I knew boundary setting wasn't just about logistics. It was about preparing for the inevitable escalation that would follow when my family realized their usual tactics weren't working. The escalation came sooner than expected. 3 days after changing my number, my mother appeared in the lobby of my office building during lunch hour. The receptionist called up, sounding confused. There's a Margaret here insisting she needs to see you immediately. She says she's your mother and it's a family emergency. My heart raced as old patterns of response activated automatically, urging me to drop everything and rush downstairs. I took a deep breath, remembering Lisa's guidance about breaking unhealthy cycles. Please tell her I'm in meetings all afternoon and unavailable, I replied, my voice shaking slightly. If it's truly an emergency, she should call 911. 20 minutes later, the receptionist called again, her voice tense. Your mother is causing a scene in the lobby. Security has been called. I think you should come down. The elevator ride to the ground floor was the longest of my life. Each floor pinged past as I rehearsed what to say, how to remain firm, yet calm, in the face of what would undoubtedly be an emotional confrontation. The lobby came into view as the doors opened. My mother stood near the security desk, her voice raised as she berated the guards who had asked her to leave the premises. Several colleagues watched the spectacle with undisguised curiosity. The professional reputation I had built over years was being dismantled in minutes by the very person who should have protected it. Mom, I said quietly, approaching the group. She whirled to face me, tears streaming down her face in what I now recognized as a practiced performance. Finally, they wouldn't let me up to see you, my own daughter. This is my workplace, I replied, keeping my voice low. You can't just show up and demand to see me. I had no choice. You changed your number. You're not answering emails. What were we supposed to do? The plural we confirmed my suspicion that this visit wasn't her idea alone. Uncle Richard's influence was evident in the coordinated approach. We need to talk outside, I said firmly, guiding her toward the exit to minimize the audience for whatever came next. Once on the sidewalk away from the immediate view of my colleagues, my mother's demeanor shifted from distraught to accusatory. How could you cut us off without warning your father had to borrow money for the mortgage payment this month? Amber might have to leave school mid-semester. I gave 18 months of warning at dinner, I reminded her. You all rejected that plan and told me not to contact you anymore. That was about emotional space, not financial support, she exclaimed, as if the distinction were obvious. We were hurt by your accusations. You can't have it both ways, Mom. You can't tell me I'm not welcome in the family, but my money still is. Family is complicated, Phoebe. We have disagreements, but still support each other. Support goes both ways, I pointed out. When was the last time anyone in the family supported me? When I had surgery, you all went to Hawaii instead of visiting me once. Her expression flickered with momentary guilt before hardening again. Richard offered to pay for both the trip and a nurse for you. You declined. This was news to me and patently false. No such offer had been made. The casual lie revealed how far the family narrative had diverged from reality under Uncle Richard's influence. I need to get back to work, I said, recognizing the conversation was going nowhere. Please don't come to my office again. If you want to talk, send an email and we can arrange a meeting in a neutral location. So, that's it. You're choosing your job over your family, over your mother, who gave birth to you. The guilt trigger was so predictable, it had lost its power. I'm choosing healthy boundaries, Mom. Something this family has never respected. As I turned to go, she called after me. Richard says you'll regret this when you need family most. You'll come back begging when you're alone and realize what you've thrown away. The threat lingered in the air as I walked back into the building, past curious colleagues and sympathetic security guards. By the time I reached my office, the story of the lobby confrontation had already circulated through workplace gossip channels. My boss stopped by an hour later, ostensibly to discuss a project, but clearly checking on my well-being. Everything okay, Phoebe? That seemed intense earlier. I appreciated her concern, but felt the sting of professional embarrassment. Family issues, I explained vaguely. I'm handling it, but I apologize for the disruption. No apology needed, she assured me. Family can be complicated. If you need anything, just let me know. Her simple understanding and respect for boundaries highlighted everything my biological family lacked. It was a small moment of connection that reinforced I was making the right choice, however difficult. The workplace incident was followed by escalating attempts at contact. Uncle Richard sent formal-looking letters threatening vague legal action for familial support withdrawal. Jackson showed up at my condo building so frequently, the doorman began turning him away automatically. Amber leveraged mutual friends on social media to publicly shame me for abandoning family in crisis. Through it all, I maintained the boundaries I had set, aided by weekly therapy sessions with Lisa and the unexpected support network that emerged around me. Colleagues invited me to dinners when they sensed I was struggling. Neighbors checked in regularly. Even Sam went beyond his professional role, connecting me with a support group for people establishing boundaries with family members. The process of reclaiming my independence extended beyond finances. I began volunteering at a community center, teaching financial literacy, finding purpose in helping others identify and escape unhealthy money dynamics. I joined a hiking group that met on weekends, discovering a love for outdoor activities I had never had time to explore while managing my family's needs. For the first time in my adult life, I started dating with intention rather than fitting relationships into the margins of my family obligations. Michael, a landscape architect I met through the hiking group, was the first person I dated who never knew me as the family provider. He saw me simply as Phoebe, with my own dreams and quirks and value beyond what I could give to others. 6 months after cutting financial ties, I took my first true vacation, a weekend trip to the mountains alone. Standing on a summit overlooking valleys stretching to the horizon, I called Lisa on my new phone. I feel guilty for being happy, I admitted, watching clouds cast shadows across the landscape below. Like I've abandoned them and don't have the right to enjoy my life now. Guilt is the cost of growth, she replied thoughtfully. But consider this, by enabling their financial dependence for so long, were you truly helping them become their best selves? The question lingered as I continued my solo journey, discovering small pleasures that had always seemed frivolous before. A pottery class where I created lopsided mugs with childlike joy. An evening jazz concert in the park where I danced without self-consciousness. A cooking workshop where I learned to make pasta from scratch flour, dusting my clothes as I laughed with strangers who were becoming friends. Each new experience was a thread in the tapestry of my reclaimed life, colorful and vibrant against the monochrome background of my previous existence. The guilt gradually receded, not disappearing entirely, but settling into a manageable companion rather than an overwhelming force. By the time autumn leaves began to turn, transforming the city into a canvas of amber and crimson, I had established a new normal that felt both foreign and intrinsically right. I was building a life that honored my needs without dismissing others, creating space for reciprocal relationships rather than one-sided extractions. The healing wasn't linear, and some days the absence of family still ached like a phantom limb. But increasingly, I found myself grateful for the painful text message that had catalyzed my liberation. "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore. At all." In attempting to punish me, they had inadvertently set me free. 8 months had passed since the family text message that changed everything. The seasons had cycled from winter to spring to summer, my life settling into rhythms uninterrupted by financial emergencies or emotional manipulation. I had paid off my student loans completely, built a 6-month emergency fund, and even begun researching investment properties, all milestones that would have been impossible while supporting my family. The corner cafe was my Saturday morning ritual, a small indulgence of freshly baked pastries and craft coffee before farmers market shopping. I was absorbed in a book when a familiar voice cut through the ambient chatter. "Phoebe." I looked up to find my sister Amber standing beside my table, her expression uncertain. She looked different, more mature somehow. Her previously highlighted hair, now its natural brown. Her designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. "Amber?" I managed, my heart racing with surprise and conflicting emotions. "Hi. Would it be okay if I sat down for a minute?" I gestured to the empty chair across from me, closing my book as she settled in awkwardly. For a moment, neither of us spoke, the weight of 8 months of silence hanging between us. "You look good," she finally said. "Really good, actually." "Thanks," I replied cautiously. "You too. Different, but good." She smiled faintly. "A lot has changed." "For both of us, I imagine." Amber fidgeted with a paper napkin, tearing tiny methodical strips from its edge. "I owe you an apology, Phoebe. A big one. The way we treated you, the things we said and did, it wasn't right." The directness of her apology caught me off guard. I had rehearsed potential family reunions in my mind, but they always involved more defense and justification, not immediate accountability. "What brought you to this realization?" I asked, neither accepting nor rejecting her apology yet. She sighed, abandoning the shredded napkin. "Reality, I guess. After you cut off the money, everything fell apart in ways I didn't expect. Mom and Dad had to sell the house. They're in a 2-bedroom apartment now. Jackson actually has a regular job at a tech startup, if you can believe it." "And you?" I prompted. "I transferred to state, took out loans like a normal student, got a part-time job at the library." She shrugged. "It was hard at first, really hard. I was so angry at you for forcing these changes. But then something weird happened." "What's that?" I started feeling proud of myself for figuring things out on my own. I'm making decisions based on what I want, not what Uncle Richard thinks is best, or what Mom expects. She looked up, meeting my eyes directly. "And I realized that's what you were trying to give us all along. Not punishment, but independence." The insight surprised me, especially coming from Amber, who had been the most emotionally manipulative of my siblings. That's a mature perspective, I acknowledged. Uncle Richard still has his hooks in Mom and Dad, she continued. He moved them into an apartment building he owns, so now he's literally their landlord. But his support comes with so many conditions, it's suffocating. That doesn't surprise me, I said, remembering the pattern established years ago. The difference is, now I can see it clearly. Before I just thought you were being difficult or selfish when you questioned his help. Now I understand why you pushed back. Her words validated years of lonely resistance to Uncle Richard's control. Did you come here just to tell me this? I asked, sensing there was more. Amber hesitated. I was hoping, maybe we could start talking again? Not like before. I'm not asking for money, she added hurriedly. Just, you're my sister, and I miss having a sister. The simplicity of her request touched something deep within me. Not a demand for financial support or a guilt-laden plea for resuming my provider role, just a human connection between siblings. I'd like that, I said cautiously. But things would need to be different. Real boundaries, real respect. I understand, she nodded. Maybe we could start with lunch. Just us, no parents, no Uncle Richard, no Jackson even. Just to talk. We made plans for the following weekend, a casual lunch at a neutral restaurant halfway between our homes. As Amber stood to leave, she paused, uncertainty crossing her features again. They miss you too, you know. Mom and Dad. They just don't know how to reach out without Uncle Richard's permission, and he's still furious that you broke free from his system. I'm not ready for that yet, I admitted. One relationship at a time. She nodded in understanding. Fair enough. See you Saturday. I'll be there. Watching my sister walk away, I felt a complex mixture of hope and caution. This encounter represented the first crack in the wall of family estrangement, but I knew better than to expect immediate healing after years of dysfunction. The lunch with Amber proved surprisingly pleasant. We established new patterns of interaction, discussing books and classes and her new career interests rather than financial needs or family drama. I made my boundaries clear. I would rebuild a relationship with her as a sister, not as a provider, and any attempt to leverage our reconnection for money would end communication immediately. I get it, she assured me. Honestly, it's a relief not to see you as a walking ATM anymore. There was so much pressure in that dynamic. 2 weeks later, an email arrived from Jackson. Unlike Amber's straightforward approach, his message was a complex blend of apology, justification, and tentative olive branch. The underlying message, however, was similar. Life had forced changes that led to unexpected growth. I actually like my job, he wrote, sounding amazed at his own admission. Having structure and colleagues and regular paychecks that I earned. Who knew? We began a cautious email correspondence less intimate than my renewed relationship with Amber, but a significant shift from the total estrangement of the past months. My parents remained distant, though a birthday card arrived, signed by both containing no requests or accusations, just a simple, "We miss you," beneath their names. I wasn't ready to respond, but I kept the card on my refrigerator, a reminder that healing might be possible someday on new and healthier terms. Uncle Richard made one final attempt at manipulation, approaching Michael at his landscape architecture firm, with a lucrative contract offer contingent on talking some sense into Phoebe about family obligations. Michael not only declined, but reported the interaction to me immediately, reinforcing why I trusted him in a way I had never trusted family. As the 1-year anniversary of my financial independence approached, I realized how profoundly my life had transformed. I was debt-free for the first time since college, with growing savings and retirement accounts. My career had advanced with a focus and energy previously diluted by family demands. My relationship with Michael had deepened into something built on mutual support rather than obligation. Most significantly, I had discovered a purpose beyond family provision. My volunteer work teaching financial literacy had evolved into a popular blog documenting my journey from financial exploitation to independence, Comments poured in from readers experiencing similar family dynamics, seeking guidance on establishing boundaries without severing relationships completely. "You saved my sanity," one reader wrote. "I thought I was the only one trapped in this cycle of giving until I had nothing left for myself." These messages confirmed what Lisa had suggested during our therapy sessions. My experience, though painful, equipped me to help others navigate similar terrain. The family rejection that once seemed like my greatest failure had become the foundation for my most meaningful work. On a cool autumn evening, exactly 1 year after the text message that changed everything, I sat on my balcony watching sunset colors paint the city skyline. Michael had gone to visit his parents for the weekend, a healthy family relationship I was still learning to understand through observation. The solitude felt peaceful rather than lonely, a space for reflection rather than isolation. My phone chimed with a text from Amber. "1 year since everything changed. Just wanted to say I'm grateful for the sister I'm getting to know now, even if it took a crisis to get here." I smiled at the message, appreciating the acknowledgement of our journey. As I set the phone down, I considered the complex truth about family relationships. Sometimes losing what you thought you needed is the only way to find what you truly deserve. Sometimes the most loving act is not endless giving, but establishing boundaries that allow everyone the dignity of self-reliance. The financial support I had provided for a decade had not created independence or growth, but prolonged dependence and entitlement. By withdrawing that support, I had inadvertently given my family something far more valuable: the opportunity to discover their own resilience and capability. Not all of them had seized that opportunity. My parents remained entrenched in Uncle Richard's system of control, trading autonomy for financial security. That was their choice to make, just as independence had been mine. The evening breeze carried the scent of nearby gardens as I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, content in the knowledge that my worth was never tied to what I could provide financially. True family, I had learned, supports your growth rather than exploiting your resources. Sometimes you find that family through blood ties carefully reconstructed on healthier foundations. Sometimes you create it through chosen connections built on mutual respect. Either way, the journey begins with the courage to reply to those who would drain you indefinitely with a simple, powerful truth. Of course, I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing. Does someone in your life constantly make you feel like a walking ATM? Drop a comment about how you've learned to set financial boundaries with family or friends. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about finding strength through difficult family dynamics. And remember, supporting loved ones is beautiful, but enabling dependency hurts everyone in the end. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you courage if you're facing a similar journey.